What's up, guys? This is Blank Boy, and you suck at Vultology. This is the only show on the internet where you get to hone your Vultological prowess. Today, I'm going to be doing things a little bit different. I just want to go over some of the numbers. We've been doing this show for, what's going to be episode 9 now. So I just thought that I would collect some of the data, not that 9 episodes of like a handful of people doing this every time is like so much data. But I thought it would be interesting to look at what you guys are getting wrong more, what you guys are getting right more. You know, it is just an aggregate of everyone, so take it for what it is. Everyone does, in aggregate, the worst on judgment axes, on differentiating whether or not someone is FETI or TEFI. I thought that was interesting, that, yeah, for whatever reason, judgment axes are the hardest for you guys. So maybe that's been you, and you want to especially revisit the judgment axis tutorials on the cognitive type site. Then coming in close second is whether or not someone is a conductor or a revisor. So whether their leading energetic element is PI, JE, or whether it is PE or JI. And then tied for you guys sucking the least at it is whether or not someone leads with a perceiving function or judging function, and what their perception axis is. Did not expect those to be tied, but there it is. So I guess what we could take away from this is saying, okay, according to you guys, the group, wisdom of the group, wisdom of the crowd, I think they call it, the most reliable Vultological signals, at least for doing this kind of thing, these kind of soft typings, is whether or not someone leads with a judging or perceiving function, and whether they are SENI or SINE. Cool. Then another little thing that I would like to note, Lolita Nian, credit to Lolita Nian for pointing this out, said, hey, I think Jungkook is actually SENI and not NESI, as I had said in a previous video. I just want to say I am not infallible. You know, whoever's checking my work on a given week is also not infallible. So it's not as though, you know, I say these things, you know, give you guys these answers and call it a day. I want to give a thanks to Lolita Nian for pointing this out. Yeah, when we go over the gifts, we're going to be checking out, we're going to be revisiting Jungkook just specifically for his perception axis. Then, how did you guys do last week? Let's see. So I am happy to announce that NanoNuke got full points. NanoNuke got everyone right. So nice. Congratulations, NanoNuke. You get the prize for least suck, which this week is a get out of drone strike free card. Then the prize for most suck goes to Stump, who got 5 out of a possible 8 points. The prize for most suck this week is an everlasting siren that cannot be turned off. Sorry, Stump. The average you guys got was 6.6 out of a possible 8 points. Not bad. All right. So having covered all that, I think we're ready to go to the gifts. All right, here are those beautiful gifts we all know and love. So first, just gonna revisit Jungkook real quick. Here was a GIF that I used previously when I called him, a PE lead alpha, so on the NESI axis. I want to point out that he does have this toggle, right, up there that leaves the horizontal plane. Of course, I don't know what is above him, what is going on in the room that might be of interest, wherever he's looking. But I just want to point out how confusing this can be, right? Is this signal mixing? Is this just whatever happenstance that's in the room that's leading him to look up and over here? Some people I know would just go ahead and call this pointed, because it looks like it goes bam, bam, bam. It looks like it hits 3 discrete points. But I personally don't like saying that so much because of how subject to interpretation that is. Like, how easy is it to say, oh, well, maybe this is pointed, maybe this is brushstroke. So yes, there are these kinds of ambiguous things going on. But what we can notice here is at the very end there, when his head tilts like that, his gaze is coming with it. Tilt, right? The gaze is off here, tilt. So that I would call some eye-head parallel motion, though it is less common for it to show up in the form of a tilt. We are seeing that here. Just going to try to go through these and not take too much time. Here, I slowed down this GIF at full speed. This is not the most apparent thing, but here, right, he was looking forward and boom, he moves his head and eyes at the same time, looking over here. What we see in this, in the rest of the GIFs here, oh, well, actually, here's another eye-head parallel motion one. This is probably the most apparent one of these. Boom, boom. This feels very SCNI to me. Then here we go. We've got, yeah, just these next 2 GIFs feel very grounded. So here, his arms feel very grounded. He's swaying, but I call this heavy swaying. This almost looks like, what you get from PI leads. In his eyes, we see lateral toggling that does stay along the horizontal plane. And we also get this eye-head parallel motion right here and here. So, at the beginning of the GIF, his head is not moving, or, it moves a little there, but it's mostly stationary, right, while his eyes are toggling a little bit. But at the latter half of this GIF, we do see move, move. At the end, his head is moving here. I guess it does get cut off right there. Finally, here we have more of the grounded effect, right, where he's got this gesticulation and his hands just go straight down. They feel so heavy. They just have to rest down on the ground, or, on his legs, whatever. So again, yeah, sorry for messing this up the first time, but all right, cool. Here we've got our correction. We've got Jungkook as a SE lead, not an NE lead. All right. Let's continue on to this week's people. Here we've got Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Here, everyone did, almost everyone got her almost correct. I mean, NanoNuke did get her entirely correct. But let's see where things went wrong. So I believe everyone got her perception axis right. Here we see this dancing brow. Let's just look at how animated this brow is, right? It goes up. I know a brow raise itself is not part of the dancing brow signal, but here we do see it just get really quite animated up. And down when she scowls here, I call this a precarious scowl. We see the whole thing coming down, right? The corners of the brow, ooh, coming down with it. We get some lateral gesturing here at the end. So, okay, feels like some PE here. And you might be saying, well, aren't her hands, in front of her? Aren't they going forward? I'm calling this lateral gesturing, especially, if anyone's confused about when things are lateral gesturing, forward gesturing, another sort of a synonymous way that I think of lateral gesturing is as like kind of like drawing a picture with your hands, whereas projecting hands are not like drawing a picture. They're just kind of aiming at the audience. Here, we're not seeing, aiming at the audience, trying to say like, hey, listen to me. It's more, hey, look, I'm drawing a picture here. I'm painting a picture. There is this flat thing in front of me. This kind of demonstrating, not listen to me, but demonstrating some object, whether that's an abstract object or a physical object, I'm not concerned about. But right, she's sort of drawing a flat plane in the space in front of her. So this is why I'm calling this lateral gesturing. And of course, obviously, yes, her hands are moving side to side. Something that I managed to capture in this GIF that I don't often capture in the GIFs is clipping at the end here. Oh, I really should have pulled up the video. She's saying something, and she says, right there. So her mouth does close to have the M in but other than that, her mouth is actually staying open at the end here while her articulation is getting clipped off. And it is this mouth openness. I know her mouth does close to say but it's not like she's leaving her mouth closed and really becoming sort of mouth-centric and tensing her jaw and her mouth. Her mouth does stay lax at the end here. Coming immediately open there. This is a PI clip at the end here. All right, here we have some more precarious scowling. You guys did fine with that. Here, I think this is just a very obvious example of it. And some head wobbling. So I called this wobbling. It's kind of weird. It's not quite a shake. It's not quite a nod. This is a JE signal. This is a JE signal, this kind of use of the head. She's not really swaying. This does feel more rigid, more deliberate than when we get swaying. Now this is where I could see people thinking that she is TEFI, but I want to be careful. I want to look at her chin. Is her chin really moving around chaotically if we were to trace it through space? And I would say that it's not. I would say that she does a little wobble and then moves along this vector at the end there. But all in all, it's actually staying right about there. This is not really the kind of turbulence we see with TEFI. Here we've got some brushstroke toggling and some of these little head nods throughout. All right, sure, but you guys did just fine with perception. Here we've got quite a bit of lateral gesturing, right? It's not that JE leads, and people who are not PE lead can't gesture laterally. Everyone can gesture laterally, right? But what else is going on here? Well, her shoulders are actually remaining rigid. Yes, you could say that her whole torso moves forward a bit, But she's not, her spine is not moving side to side while she's doing this gesturing the way you would expect from a PE lead. So she's got all this gesturing, and then it also ends up hitting right there, and landing at a discrete point in space right there. All right, so this is the kind of lateral gesturing that we're getting from someone who is not a PE lead. All right, cool. And then all the while, we are also getting some of this head nodding. One more time, I want to point out how measured, how careful her chin is moving through space. It's staying right here and moving in this direction. Staying right here and moving in that direction. All right, cool. This is feeling measured to me. It is. Here, we've got some meticulous hands. Here we see that delicate pinching. We've got a fair bit of eye toggling, especially in the latter half of the GIF. And we have some, what I'm calling face centricity, when her face is first pointing over here and then pointing over there. It's not as though it followed the eyes, right? Her face is not following her eyes. And maybe I should have slowed this down to really illustrate that point. But it is her face leading the rest of it. I guess her torso doesn't really move, right? The shoulders are staying here the whole time. Yeah, her arms are moving a lot, but I mean, in terms of just, I'll leave my cursor right here. This is where her shoulder is the entire time. All right, cool. Here we've got some projecting hands. Yeah, there's a thumbs up. I'm calling that a symbolic gesture. The thumbs up itself is not a vultological signal, but right, she's projecting. Look at all this projecting and look at each hit. Hit, hit, hit. 3 hits, right? Just very rigid, very rigid. Despite being so rigid in her hands, there is actually some swaying here. So it's not as though rigid J leads don't sway at all, right? Again, I'll just leave my cursor here as a reference point. You can see the amount of swaying, right? It's not huge, but yes, there is lateral swaying here. I'm not about to call her a PE lead all of a sudden just because I saw some swaying, though. Same with toggling. We see quite a bit of toggling here. She looks over there and swings back and jumps over here and comes back. All right, cool. So there is quite a bit of PE consciousness here. Here, we've got more meticulous pinching. So there is quite a bit of JI. We see this in a number of these GIFs. We're going to see some more in a little bit, some more JI signaling. We're getting alongside this some eye toggling over here, down a little, over there, quite a bit actually. And what I'm calling a measured head nod, right at the end there. That feels very measured. It feels timely with her articulation. And with this one too, we're getting some body swaying at the end there. And there we go. She sways off to the side. Just a bit, but enough to say, yes, that is body swaying, right? Her shoulders are not staying rigid in that moment. Here, we're getting some puppeteer fingers, right? So this is going to be TI right there. Puppeteer fingers are not necessarily, pointing down like you're literally using marionettes. Here, right, her hand is actually pointed. Well, I guess her palm is just sort of facing this way. But right, the fingers, it's the fingers that they're all moving independently. Right, this is the puppeteer fingers. All right, and also with this, we're getting a whole mess load of eye toggling. We see plenty of that with her. And at the end there, I'm calling this projecting hands. So this hitting down, down, down. Right here, she's not painting a picture. She is not, demonstrating some object, abstract or physical. She's just hitting down. This is what I'm calling projecting hands. Even though this doesn't feel that forward, it doesn't feel like she's going out that much, I'm still calling this projecting hands. Finally, to really drive the point home that she is measured and not candid, we are getting some measured head shakes. Notice that the velocity is variable. She comes in with one velocity and then keeps it going with another one. All the while, she has this zygomatic smile here, saying, you never know, never know, right? This wide zygomatic smile that is getting pulled up, right? At the beginning there, right as the smile comes across, it feels a little slow. And this does feel very measured to me. It doesn't just strike across her face. This really feels audience oriented. All right, cool. So she's on the FETI axis. She's on the SINE axis. She is a JE lead. We do get plenty of this rigidity and a lot of JE signaling. All right, cool. We've got a JE lead alpha with Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Then coming to Peter Atiyah. Peter Atiyah, I think, is a really interesting case. We'll get to some of the later GIFs that I just think are so cool. But all right, almost everyone got him right. I think one person thought he was NITE instead. But here we go. We've got this unbroken articulation. You get a lot of unbroken articulation with Peter Atiyah, just steady, steady, steady. Then we're getting some of this head nodding and head shaking, which to me, this is all feeling very plateau velocity. We've got this scowl. Let's see the quality of this scowl. All right. This feels like a frontalis scowl to me. It looks like a frontalis scowl to me, where we've got this scowling affecting the middle of the brow, while the edges of the brow are staying where they are. And I know he has a, what I think is a very bushy brow, makes for a very good visual cue, visual aid in determining the sort of thing. All the while, his shoulders are so static. They just stay right there, right there. All right, cool. Here we've got some lip wobbling. So here we're seeing his lip getting pulled up and to our left, his right, unless this video is flipped, but whatever, I'm just going to call it the left. So, all right, a lot of asymmetric lip pulling right up here. And I think you guys were doing a good job of identifying that sort of thing. We were also seeing a little bit of pulling at the beginning of the GIF up there, but primarily over here. We've got this projecting hand coming forward, as well as just one little head nod there. All right, so we've got some JI in the lip wobbling, excuse me, FI specifically, and we've got these other JE signals. Here, we've got what I'm calling a snippy brow raise. His brow comes up, but it just comes up to fall right back down. This feels snippy. This feels curt, sort of. All right, this feels TEFI. And yeah, I call this like a side nod. Yeah, right there at the end, that thing, where it's kind of like he's nodding, but you know, whatever, off to the side. All right, more JE. Looks like the arm's doing something, but it's off camera, so we can't really say, whoops, we can't really say anything definitive about that. But all right. We'll come back to this. We'll come back to this arm in some of the later GIFs. Here, I just wanted to have one nice slowed down GIF where we could really see that lip wobble. We do get just an absurd amount of lip wobbling with Peter Atiyah. Just a lot. It's a lot. If you watch his video slowed down and you just watch his mouth, it's insane. It's a lot. Here, I think that really just demonstrates that. Oh, I guess I have another one. Yeah, all the lip wobbling in the world. Here we can see some head turbulence now, contrasting this with what we saw with Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Here, we've got this shake off to the side, followed by a bit of a push there. But this feels, this is how it feels turbulent, especially with this shoulder shrug in here, right? This just feels very dismissive right here. That feels extremely dismissive. Of course, I'm not saying that he is literally dismissing the person that he's talking to, but just the quality of this motion feels very dismissive. Very dismissive. As we follow the chin, it goes off to the side, it goes up a little and down. I guess here, you know, you might say, well, it's only following two vectors, sort of here and here. And to be sure, for a TEFI user, he is not extremely turbulent. You don't get that much of this from Peter Atiyah. All right, cool. Then here we're seeing some projecting hands. Oddly enough, you also don't get so much of this. As the hands are projecting, we've got these rigid shoulders just sitting here. His eyes disengage right there as he halts, right? He's halted. The hands just stay at a point in space as the eyes disengage. That's JI. And yeah, with these shoulders, this all just feels very rigid to me, right? The projecting hands, the rigid halt, very rigid, looking very rigid here. We get a lot of J signals from Peter. Now here we go. These last two GIFs, I just want to point out something that I think this is just so cool. Who knows, maybe you guys don't. But here we see it's like he's not trying to gesture, but he just can't help it. This is, I mean, of course, that's just my subjective impression. But right, we're getting all this JE signaling, even though, you know, the person he's talking to is over here. I'm not sure how the angle of the table works, if they can, you know, see his hand or not. But it's like he's not even trying to show this. This reminds me of, like, you know, when you're on the phone and you're gesturing on the phone, and of course the person on the phone with you cannot see what you're doing at all. This sort of reminds me of that. But we're just getting, you know, all this gesturing, even though his hands are not, you know, really coming out. It doesn't even feel audience oriented. It feels, you know, I wrote that it is subdued, but it's like he can't help it. He is so JE that even if he's not really trying to show something to the audience as he's talking, he just has to be moving this hand. Here we get this again, this subdued gesturing coming down here. Now here the audience can, the audience is right here. She can see his hand, for sure. But even so, I do just think it's so interesting how he can't help but to do this. He's doing this, even though this is not what we see commonly with JE gesturing, right? Commonly, it's much more demonstrative, I guess. But here it's just kind of down. It's below his waist, but he's still doing it. He's still doing it. And I'm sure some of you were watching this and maybe thinking, oh, this might be the gesturing of someone leading with an introverted energetic element. I want to point out that while I'm not saying that couldn't be the case, to me it really seems that this is just something that his hands, his energy must do, whether he's trying to or not. This just feels so extremely JE to me. Often with people who are leading with introverted elements, in terms of expressing JE, what you get very commonly is a lack of motion through clear and concise articulation, or some very on the CT codifier, they call it exerted pushing, where it is this pushing where the hand stays very near the torso, but still pushes out. Here, I just want to point out, in both of these GIFs, it's not like his arm is staying near the torso. It is actually away from the torso. It's just below the waist. So I think these are just so cool. But they are making me want to say that he is JE lead, even though what we do not get with Peter Atiyah, that we get with almost all conductors, is a kind of forwardness. He's actually feeling very revisor here. I think Stump said this in the comments. Yeah, here he's feeling more forward. Actually, not really. He's not really, the torso's leaning into it at all. He feels sort of revisor. He really does feel revisor. So how do we justify this? How do we justify saying that he is a JE lead and not a JI lead? Well, of course, for saying that definitively, we would need a rigorous report. But even in just going over videos with him for a soft typing, you do just get way more JE signaling. Yes, I said he did a lot of lip wobbling, but this lip wobbling is happening through clear and concise articulation. It's not happening through halting and locking and other JI signals. It is happening all the while that there's all these JE signals happening. And even though he seems sort of revisor in some ways, just in his lack of forwardness, I am going to go ahead and call him a JE lead. I think you guys did really good at picking up on that. All right, cool. We've got a JE lead gamma in Peter Atiyah with the TEFI axis and the NISE axis. I know I didn't spend that much time on his being NISE. I think maybe just these first couple GIFs, but you guys did fine picking that up on your own. All right, cool. So I am going to not be doing an episode next week or the following week. I'm going to be out of town for a little bit. I think Jay's going to be filling in between now and then and the time that I get back. But yeah, thanks so much for watching. And I hope you guys are having a good time while I'm out.